Newham Council, a council running the Olympic Borough, was today accused of letting down residents with its plans to close a leisure centre. It's less than a mile from the 2012 Games Aquatics Centre. Newham is going to shut Atherton Leisure Centre in Stratford at the end of the year because of rising maintenance costs. The main swimming pool has been closed since May for roof repairs, which tripled in cost to £250,000 after asbestos was found. Well, joining me now to perhaps have a look at some of the details of what's been going on is Simon Shaw, who's involved in the campaign and then taught in the area for 30 years. Simon, good morning to you.
Hello there.
So the council says that it's far too expensive to maintain and to fix this leisure centre. They've found asbestos in the roof. Surely if that's the case, you have to take their advice and say, well, maybe it's time for this building to go. It is 80 years old after all.
Yeah, 1936 it was constructed. Yeah, they've always known there's been asbestos in the roof, and their plan was to deal with it. £250,000 is not a lot of money if you put it in the context of what they've spent on the Olympics. That's £9.3 billion for the main Olympic Park. And Newham Council, which says they haven't got any money for a really well-used community centre, their own figures, 240,000 people used it last year, have loaned West Ham United £40 million. So they've given £40 million to two millionaires who own West Ham United. And you might like to question how those two millionaires got their money. It was not exactly entirely, well, they got it through selling pornography. So £40 million to pornographers. They haven't got £250,000 to maintain a really popular community centre.
Can I just throw something at you? Can I just throw something at you? The Newham Council spokesman says, due to safety concerns and the need to provide a sustainable leisure service for our customers, Newham Council has decided to close Atherton Leisure Centre from the 1st of January 2012. They're going to replace it with a new purpose-built centre with a swimming pool. The centre is almost 80 years old. The building is no longer fit for purpose. The swimming pool was closed in May for essential roof repairs, and asbestos was discovered whilst work was ongoing, which presented a further risk to public safety.
Yeah, no, they always knew that asbestos was there, and the plan was to contain it. And asbestos, as far as I understand, is only in the main pool. There's two pools there. The devil is in the detail of their report, the cabinet report. Nothing in Newham is done openly. It's not done in open session. On the 22nd of this month, a closed cabinet meeting, decided to close the pool. They're not going to replace it. As I say, the devil is in the detail. If you read their report, they say there's a significant risk that the capital financing will not be secure for a replacement facility. They're not going to replace it. That's what their PR machine says, their press office says.
I mean, it does strike me as odd. No, I think you're right to highlight that, because it is odd that the Newham have said that the centre would cost £2.2 million to maintain for the next decade. So that's the old buildings, £2.2 million, and a replacement would cost between £11.5 million and £19 million, and no funds have been set aside. So what's your message? Would you say, look, it's about time that you perhaps got your priorities right? £250,000, you're saying, isn't a great deal of money in the scheme of things?
Well, not if you put it in the context of the sort of money that's that's swelling around Newham. I mean, the front page of our local paper, the Stratford Recorder, says that the leisure centre is going to close. You turn to page 3, and you find out that the government is going to give £200 million of taxpayers' money to Westfield, the biggest shopping centre in Europe, which again is just close to the Olympic site, a mile away from the Atherton swimming pool. So they've got £200 million to give to the multi-millionaire owners of Westfield, all those shops there, that took £20 million in the first weekend. They haven't got £250,000 to keep a really well-used community facility going. Again, you've got to put this in context. We won the Olympic bid. One of the strong points of our bid in the bid book was that we'd increase participation. Now, the former sports minister said last week we've absolutely failed in that plan to increase participation. And the reality was that was a lie. They knew they weren't going to seriously increase participation. The Olympics is about Olympic sport, elite sports people winning medals. Most of them went to public school. 85% of the medals at Beijing were won by 6% of the population that go to public school. They're not interested in areas like Newham and increasing participation. Newham is one of the poorest areas in the country. When we won the Olympic bid, You couldn't move in Stratford when the IOC visited for flower baskets and street sport. And they were trying to show the International Olympic Committee that this is what the Olympics was about. The summer that they visited, crime rates in Newham went down because there was so much for the kids to do. That has disappeared since we've won the bid. All the money, it's been like a black hole has been sucked into that Westfield and Olympic site area, and there's nothing for local people. There are now two Stratfords. There's the E20, the mythical Stratford E20 of EastEnders has become the Stratford, and we're the other bit of Stratford, the poor Stratford. And this is epitomised by the fact they're closing our community centre. Can I just read you what the Cabinet report says? The last section of the Cabinet report that, as I say, voted this decision through secretly says, reputational risk following the closure of the building will be managed by putting in place a robust communication strategy. Now, these people write and speak in funny ways, but I take that to mean they're scared of the reaction of the community. And what the community is going to do today at 11 o'clock is we're going to meet outside the Atherton Leisure Centre and tell Newham Council what we think of them and tell them that we know that they've been lying to us all the time about what the Olympics really means.
Well, it's an interesting set of debates that you raised, Simon, and thank you very much indeed for your views this morning. And of course, on that leisure centre, if you want to talk about it, I mean, I think the case from Simon is very powerful, and the more I look into it, the more that the numbers don't stack up. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Simon has to say about participation, or I was amazed that he managed to bring in and turn the Olympics into a class discussion about where you went to school. That clearly, obviously, if you go to public school, then you're far better and more likely to receive a medal at the Olympics than if you don't. I have not heard that argument before. It's an interesting one. I think that was rather off the point. The point here, though, is that Newham Council, I think, is absolutely right, giving 40 million quid as a loan to West Ham, who, do they need it? As opposed to £250,000 to fix a very old but a rather splendid building, because I've seen the pictures of it, and the more I think about it, the more I actually think, not necessarily for the same reasons as Simon, but maybe Newham have got it wrong. 0845 6060 973. Do you think we should be keeping our old leisure centres open, or is it better just to have new ones? Now, Richard Harrington is, of course, Conservative MP for Watford. You were listening very patiently and clearly to that, and I thought best not to get you involved in a local political issue. Can you understand when people get upset that when money is cut and then they see money spent in a certain way, 40 million going to Newham, from Newham Council to West Ham to sort out the future legacy of what could have been a very embarrassing PR disaster. We've got 200 million pounds going to Westfield, who of course done incredible work and development and investment to create Westfield over in the east, to sort of match the one in the west. But still, that's a lot of public money. 9 many billion pounds going into the Olympics. And 250 grand to fix an old building, which is probably rather splendid in terms of what it provides and could be kept running for 2.2 million over 10 years. Is that really too much for a local community to ask?
I don't think it is too much, and I thought the gentleman made a very compelling case. As far as the money to Westfield's concerned, I really think that's completely separate because, of course, society, the government and the local council make a fortune out of business rates there for years and years and years to come. So I regard that as being an investment. But on the scale of everything that's gone on, it's very hard to argue that £250,000, which is like a Mars bar in comparison to the total amount, could not have been found. I just wonder what the other arguments were the other way. Was it just the 250,000, or was it running costs and other things that perhaps need to be gone into greater detail?
The centre is almost 80 years old and the building is no longer fit for purpose. Now, you see, I'm not sure it is. I think that we're very quick to say, oh, our buildings are not fit for purpose. Look at the Building Schools for the Future programme. We got rid of all sorts of old buildings that were absolutely amazing, and we suddenly said, oh, you must have a new building. You don't always have to have a new building.
Well, if £250,000 would bring it up to standards that were acceptable to the public who use it, then I would say that the case is won.
Here's the argument. The council had to decide between continually repairing a centre that was increasingly expensive and out of date, or investing in a modern centre for the future. I mean, whoever wrote this is an absolute cretin. I'm sorry, the more I read this thing, the more I actually agree with Simon and what he has to say. Newham Council, their spokesperson,